Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget that I am doing a giveaway toward 100,000 subscribers, so don't forget to check the link down below. Now this video is going to be very special, very different kind of mood. I want to make it a little more stream of consciousness than usual. I'm going to make this video as long as it needs to be. So if this happens to be a little too long or you have to go and do something, you can pause this. You can even close down YouTube, but when you come back to the video, it'll pick up right where you left off. So grab some snacks, enjoy yourself, and I am going to go through every single episode of I Love Lucy, the hour-long episodes. We're going to go through every single one. Now I want to let you know that the only thing I have in front of me are just a basic description of the 13 episodes. That's so of course I don't forget them, but I want to let you know I've watched every single one very thoroughly, and I've watched them throughout my life. And I do want to note that I don't have any pre-notes in terms of what I want to talk about. That's very important. Why is that? Because I may forget things here and there, and that's okay. I want to come at this through a very truthful lens. So if I remember a scene or call right to it, that means it was impactful to me. Now you may say, Rick, how come you didn't talk about this very impactful scene or this funny moment or this fact from this episode? Well, that's because it didn't come to me in mind at this point, and maybe that speaks to the scene itself being a little weak, or maybe just not sticking in my mind for whatever reason. So I do want to focus on the good, the bad, the ugly, all that good stuff from these episodes. Tell you what I think worked, what didn't work, and let's get right to it, guys and gals. Now I do want to note that these hour-long episodes are very crucial for understanding I Love Lucy. They come after the 179 half-an-hour-long episodes. In case you haven't seen them, this is kind of an intro to them, telling you a little bit about them. Now they were all, as I mentioned, each about an hour long with commercials and so forth. If you watch it from beginning to end, they roughly run around 45 minutes. So they are double the length of the 26 and a half an hour episodes that we're used to. Now that's very important to note because that was mostly a Desi decision. Desi Arnaz, yep, Ricky Ricardo himself, he was in charge of a lot of the planning of these episodes and so forth, and he thought that since they were so popular and they had more money, they basically ran all these studios, that they could get all these stars on the show, they could make a big impact, big episodes versus the smaller ones. He felt he can cram so much comedy and so much humor and just so much good stuff into these episodes. Some people think he may have failed, some people think he may have succeeded. Let me know in the comments what you think down below. Now I do want to know, it is the same characters, the Ricardos, the Mertzes, that doesn't change. They moved from New York to Connecticut, so we see them in the big Connecticut home, and then we see the continuation of their adventures there. Not much changes. There are some continuity issues, but they are the same people and so forth. And we begin with the first episode. It's called Lucy Takes a Cruise to Havana. Now this was a November 6, 1957 premiere. Now in this one, we see a lot of guest stars. We see Hedda Hopper. She appeared once before in the Hollywood episodes and half-an-hour episodes. There's also Rudy Valley and Cesar Romero. There's also one more, and that is Ann Southern. She played one of Lucy's friends. She was in fact a very interesting character. She kind of played the first Ethel Mertz, the first woman who was kind of friends with Lucy, who got into shenanigans before they met the Ethel Mertz character. And so this is where Lucy meets Ethel and Fred, supposedly on a Havana cruise back in the 40s, which is very interesting because timeline wise it was more than 15 years according to the I Love Lucy story. Now this does contradict a couple episodes back in the half-an-hour I Love Lucy episodes on how Lucy and Ricky met. But the idea is that they take a cruise. The girls, that is Susie McNamara, played by Ann Southern, and Lucy, want to find some men. And so we even see Frank Nelson in this episode. We see a lot of cool things, as I mentioned, Rudy Valley and so forth. They make their way to Havana and, of course, to Cuba. Now, none of this was actually filmed in Cuba. There are a few opening shots and so forth where, yes, the second crew went over there and got those shots. But other than that, everything was filmed pretty much in the same location where all the other episodes are filmed. They just put sets there and they use a few camera tricks, and yep, you think that you're in Havana. Now for this episode, it was a little bit of a rat race because there was a little bit of a romance. The idea was that Ricky and Lucy were paired up together, and they actually didn't like each other in the story. And as time went on throughout the episode, they gradually fall in love. Now, Cesar Romero's character, Carlos, is paired with Ann Southern's character, Susie, and they fall in love, quote unquote, instantly. But as the episode progresses, they lose interest in each other. So it's kind of cool. It's a little bit of a dynamic there. There's a lot of funny moments. I would say overall it's an all-right first episode. They put a lot of guest stars into this. There's a musical number, and then there's also this kind of rat race type thing. There's also a drunk scene where Lucy and Susie are in a Havana jail cell for different reasons, and they have this kind of cool drunk scene. It works out great, but it's a little bit of a departure from what we're used to. Now we move on to The Celebrity Next Door. This is a December 3rd, 1957 release. This is about a month after, so it takes them about a month roughly starting out to crank these episodes out. It is, yes, in front of a live studio audience, but some things were not. And so it is a departure from that style of filming in front of a live studio audience all the way through. These hour-long episodes were a little more laborious, and so it broke that mold. And some people say that they feel that. They feel that you don't have that organic I Love Lucy original feel. So in this one, we see the amazing Tallulah Bankhead. Now, a lot of you who love I Love Lucy love this episode. Now, I wouldn't say it's bad, but I would say it's one that I personally don't really gravitate toward. Again, it's not bad or anything like that. It's just not one of my personal favorites. Now, you may not know that Bette Davis was actually supposed to be the guest star on this. However, she was injured and they had to get a quick replacement, and they chose Tallulah Bankhead. She moves in next to the Ricardos, and there's some shenanigans going on. She is, of course, a famous actress. Lucy is, of course, enamored by her. She invites him over. They have this kind of nice little dinner. It's a pretty funny episode, as I mentioned. At the end, they have this PTA play, and we see Tallulah Bankhead there doing this play with the Ricardos. See, the play in itself, I think there's nothing really wrong with it. I just felt it was kind of dragged out, in my opinion, a little long. The jokes at the end were not as impactful for everything that was dragged out. It was kind of bland, in my opinion. I mostly loved the dinner scene, and then I think it kind of fell off at the end, in my opinion. And I felt there was no real build-up. I felt it was very monotone throughout the episode. Again, these are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. Now, Lucy Hunts Uranium, this is the third one. This is a January 3rd, 1958 release. Again, these are spaced out about a month apart. You're going to see how that changes as the series continues on. Now, in my opinion, it's one of my favorites from these 13-episode collection. We have Fred McMurray in this one, as well as his wife, June Haver. And the reason why I like it is because it's the first real concept of the chase. Like, it's a mad world. They're after something. They're after uranium. It's kind of like hunting for gold. And it's this race that they're all competing against each other. You have the Mertzes against the Ricardos against Fred McMurray. And they're all running around the desert trying to find this uranium. And they're trying to sabotage each other. In my opinion, as I said, it was a hilarious one. There's all these little tidbits about them messing up some of the filming, and then Desi himself doing a stunt, and then the camera wasn't even rolling. There was essentially no film in there, and so it was a disaster. But in my opinion, it came out pretty well. It was, of course, a lot of it not filmed in front of a live studio audience, so you do have that feel that is very different. But in my opinion, it is a great one. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. Moving on to Lucy Wins a Racehorse. This is a February 3rd, 1958, a month after release. In this, we have a lot of Little Ricky, as well as actress Betty Grable, as well as her husband, Harry James. And so they have another number in this one. There's some kind of spaced out throughout a lot of the Desi Comedy Hour episodes. By the way, all these episodes are called the I Love Lucy Hour-long episodes. Here's Lucy, or the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour. All those names are labels for that. I didn't mention it earlier, but I'm mentioning it now. And now this one to me was kind of strange because they do have kind of a dancing number in Lucy and Desi's, or Lucy and Ricky's house. It's kind of weird. It's very out of place. It's not bad, but it's just strange. It's almost like a musical, and they break the fourth wall and they're looking at the camera. It is Now, they have a similar one in the Havana episode, and I don't think that one was as bad. This one felt a little forced in my mind. There was the idea of the horse in the house. I think that was pretty good overall. And then we get Lucy at the end to be the jockey, which is pretty funny in my opinion. It wasn't a bad episode. It was all right. It was definitely an entertaining one. We see Fred Mertz is always a cheapskate, but in this one he even lends money to Betty Grable because of course he's enamored with her. So I did like that. I did like a lot of Fred Mertz in this episode and him kind of being the cheapskate but trying to show off for her. It was overall, as I mentioned, a good episode and you should definitely check it out. Lucy Goes to Sun Valley is the next one. Now, this is an April 14th, 1958 release, so there's a 2-month gap, the first time that happens, and that is because, of course, Lucy and Desi are starting to have a lot of marital issues. Now, they always used to have them, but they started to get very serious during the course of this series. And in fact, let me let you in on a little bit of insight. If you noticed in the first episodes of I Love Lucy, the half-an-hour long ones, there's a lot of Lucy and Desi. A lot of it. A lot of the scripts are focused around them. They're on screen 80 to 85% of the time, and the Mertzes are peppered throughout. As the series goes on, we see more and more of Lucy and Ethel and the boys together, and that's very purposeful. That was a lot of times where Desi actually had to work at the studio doing managerial and directorial things, kind of running the studio that was right next door. And so he would be off camera on purpose because he was actually working, and then he would come in to film his lines in front of the live audience and then leave again. It was pretty crazy, and it was becoming more apparent now. Plus their marital issues, they were arguing a lot, and it's really apparent in this episode. There's a lot of saddish moments, some funny moments too. We of course have the actor Fernando Lamas, who does a pretty good job in my opinion. He's pretty good. He does pretty well with Ricky Spanish. Fernando Lamas is Argentinian and Desi Arnaz is Cuban. So of course they both speak Spanish, different accent, different dialect, but they understand each other and it's pretty cool. They have some back and forth that is pretty funny. They go out, the girls, into Sun Valley. They're in this winter type atmosphere and the girls are pretty much by themselves most of the episode. In fact, 75% of the episode is just Lucy and Ethel, and that's not bad. It's just different. It's very reminiscent of the feature The Lucy Show episodes, which is strange. And then you see a lot of Desi and of course Bill Frawley, but not as much. Then finally at the end they are together and you do have scenes, but to me it's out of place. It is one I do like to watch, I do have to say, but it just feels different. It just feels different, and when you watch it, you definitely notice it. Moving on to Lucy Goes to Mexico. This is an October 6th, yeah, you heard that right, October 6th, 1958. So we jump from April to October, guys and gals. There's more than, wow, this is 6-month gap until when you saw the next episode. Now imagine going 6 months without an episode when you'd get one weekly on I Love Lucy. There were definitely issues going on behind the scenes, guys and gals. And let me just tell you, this is one where we have Maurice Chevalier, and it's an alright episode overall. It was a bit of a rat race. They're running around everywhere in Mexico, and Lucy gets in trouble, gets caught by immigration. Maurice Chevalier doesn't have his papers, and so, again, it's one where they're running around. There's a lot of Lucy, there's a lot of Ethel, and then Ricky and Fred are off on their own. Again, they do come together at the end. There's this bullfighting scene, but it's very Lucy heavy. Now, that's not necessarily bad, as I would say. The problem is, again, it's very different from the traditional I Love Lucy we're used to. There are some funny scenes here and there. We do see some recurring actors. The bullfight scene is pretty good, although in my opinion it kind of falls flat. I wish maybe Desi was in there a little bit with Lucy, and he was maybe not the matador but maybe the announcer. He kind of comes in at the end and he notices Lucy's there, and again, in my opinion, it kind of falls flat in that sense. It isn't a bad episode at all. I will mention the bad episodes in just a little bit, but one that you should check out, but don't expect too much. Now we move on. Lucy Makes Room for Danny. Now we have Danny Thomas. We also have Marjorie Lord, Rusty Hammer, and Angela Cartwright of course, the TV show Make Room for Daddy. And it was, in my opinion, a pretty good one. This was a strong episode. It starts out really strong with them coming in the door, renting out the Ricardos' home. The Ricardos can't go to their trip, and so there's kind of a feud between the three couples, the Mertzes, the Thomases, or that is, Danny Thomas, his family, the kids, and the Ricardos. and they end up going to court, and we have the amazing, of course, Gil Gordon playing the judge. It was a good episode. It was a good episode overall. There were really not a lot of lull moments, which is what I like about it. The script was fairly strong. It built up to something. It made sense. The crescendo was the courtroom scene, and there is funny moments going on throughout. Lucy sneaking into the house, Danny getting upset. There's almost no lulls. And that's why I think it's very strong. Although we go back to episodes like Lucy Goes to Sun Valley, there's definitely low, slow moments. And slow moments where I mean like you feel like there could be something in there where the script was just a bit weak. Not here. It's definitely a good one. Before I move on to the next one, I do want to note that was a December 1st, 1958 release. Again, 2 months, 2-month gap before the Mexico one. Now moving to the next one, Lucy Goes to Alaska. This one was next year, 1959, February 9th. So there was another 2-month gap. Now here we have the amazing Red Skelton. Now I would say the strongest scene in this episode, I'm going to start off right there, is immediately when we see Lucy and Red Skelton doing a mime act. Freddy the Freeloader, I believe it's called, or yes, the hobo, and it's really, really good. Lucy is amazing in this. If you don't like most of the episode, it is worth just watching it for that scene with them together doing this amazing dinner scene. It's just literally the highlight of the episode and one of the best scenes in this 13 episode series, in my opinion. There's a scene at the end where there's a little bit of an issue with a plane and they're trying to land the plane. That was weak to me, in my opinion. I'm even a pilot myself. Very unrealistic, and yes, that's I Love Lucy, but it just felt like it was just peppered in there, in my opinion. There's a scene earlier with Lucy in a hammock. It keeps flipping over. I think that's comedy gold, but there is just a lull building up to that. They're trying to find some property in Alaska. Lucy Goes to Alaska, that's what this episode's called. And it's not one of the strongest, but as I mentioned, if you just watch it and just focus on that scene, Freddy the Freeloader sketch, it is surreal and amazing. Now we move on to Lucy Wants a Career. Now this is 2 months later, in April 13th, 1959. Now in this one we have another guest star. His name is Paul Douglas. Now in this one, essentially it's very simple. Lucy is bored at home. She wants to have her own career, her own job. And Ricky says, you're not going to get it. But she does. She actually gets a job with Paul Douglas assisting him on a show. And he actually does really well with her. Lucy starts making tons of money. The problem is the odd hours of work. They don't really coincide with Lucy. So Lucy and Ricky's schedule don't coincide. And they actually don't see each other. Ricky's working at night. Lucy's working in the day, and basically when one goes to sleep, the other goes to work. When one's awake, the other one's asleep, and so forth. And so they only briefly see each other about 5 minutes throughout the day, and it really becomes difficult. Now, this was based on a real-life story of Lucy and Desi in their early life before I Love Lucy. So it kind of mirrored that. There's a really funny scene where Lucy takes too many sleeping pills, and she's almost like dead body kind of scene, a dead body kind of mannequin. And then Paul Douglas, Desi, and Lucy work together. I think that's gold. I really don't like this episode in some points because it's kind of sad that they don't see each other. Lucy's crying a lot. Even Desi's sad because they don't see each other. And a lot of sadness comes through this episode that some people may not like. There is comedy here and there. I don't see a lot of chemistry here with Fred and Ethel Mertz, the characters. They're very separated. Ethel's doing her own thing. Fred doesn't appear as much, in fact. And you don't see the Fabulous Four doing their thing. Lucy, Ricky, Fred, and Ethel. So, in my opinion, it is one of my favorites. There is that drugged up scene, which is pretty funny. If at anything you watch it for that. Now moving on to Lucy's Summer Vacation. Now this one is a June 8th, 1958 release. If you notice now there's being spaced about 2 months apart. They went from 1 month to 2 months. Now this one, I know a lot of people have told me they actually don't like it as much. I, on the other hand, tend to disagree. I personally like it. I don't know why. I think it's pretty funny. I don't know why people don't like it. Again, everyone has their own opinions. It does start out very Mertz's light. You see the Mertzes in the beginning, you don't see them throughout most of the episode, and then you just see them a little bit at the end. And yes, I wish they would have been there more, but I do like the dynamic between Lucy and Ricky. They're in the episode throughout the whole thing. And then we also see another couple, the Duffs, that is Ida Lupino and Howard Duff, husband and wife, right? They were on the show, and they kind of replaced the Mertzes for the most part, which is kind of strange. Their dynamic is all right. It's not strong. Even Ida and Lucy, it's all right. It's not very believable that they're friends. They go to this cabin and they kind of all hang out. I think some of the funniest scenes are when Lucy's asleep and then Ricky's trying to wake her up to go fishing, and Ricky's all enthusiastic. Lucy doesn't want to go because it's too early. And then the boys kind of do their thing, the girls do their thing, but there's this push and pull. And I like that. I like that dynamic of the push and pull. It was a one-off, meaning it was just a different type of episode. I think they tried something different. And at the end, they have this scene on a canoe where Lucy starts drilling holes in the boat. It's very Three Stooges reminiscing. It isn't as strong as you would think. It is a bit funny, though. It is a bit funny. In my opinion, it's one of my favorites to watch. That doesn't mean that the script is the strongest, but I think it makes sense for the most part. So check this one out. As I mentioned, just give it the caution that I know a lot of people maybe don't like it, but I, on the other hand, in the minority, do enjoy it. Now moving on to Milton Borough hides out at the Ricardos. This is a September 25th, 1959 release. Again, this is a big gap. Few months go by, more than 2 months, and you start to see kind of the beginning of the end of the series and of Desi and Lucy's marriage. It's very apparent here because, let me tell you, I do love this episode. I absolutely love it. Some people don't. Again, these are very contentious episodes. It's either like people like them or hate them, or they think they're just okay. But I like it. I like Milton Borough. I like what he does here. In my opinion, he is the strongest point in the episode, believe it or not. He does really well. Desi does some physical stunts here and there. Lucy does some physical stunts. They have their doubles as well. I like Lucy and Milton Borough. I like their dynamic. They work really well together, and you see that during the course of the first 1/3 of the episode. Then you see, of course, Milton Borough in drag, which is, in my opinion, super hilarious. He does such a good job. It's so cheesy. Ricky thinks that, of course, Lucy's cheating on him, but it's Milton Borough. He's hiding out at the Ricardos. But it's very Desi absent throughout the first half. And then you see Desi come in. Again, it's Desi working at the studio. It's them having their marital issues where he wasn't written into the script enough. I like it, as I said, guys and gals. You should check it out. In my opinion, just for Milton Borough, the dynamic is a little bit off. Yes, you see Ethel in the beginning, but you don't see a lot of Fred and Ethel. You see a lot of Ethel, and then you see a lot of Fred. And you see kind of the girls together and the boys separate. It's a very different dynamic, as I mentioned, and it's almost like it's teamed up. So you do see that. But as I mentioned, it's one of my favorites, and I don't know if you guys and gals like it. Let me know down below. Now, the Ricardos go to Japan. This is a November 27th, 1959 release. Now, you do see a couple months goes by, 2 months, and not too different. Now, here you do have a guest star. The guest star is Bob Cummings. Here's the thing, guys and gals. I have nothing against Bob Cummings. This is the only work of his that I've seen. I don't like him in this episode. That is not to say that he's not a good actor. I think that he's kind of lovable. I just think the casting was off for him. I even wish they would have brought someone else back. Maybe Bill Holden again. Someone else. Maybe even John Wayne. I don't know. I just feel like he wasn't strong enough for the role that we were asking for. Like even Fred McMurray, I love him in the 3rd episode. I don't even think he was the biggest star at this time, but I think he worked really well with the part. I just don't think this part was made for Bob Cummings. That's my opinion. It was just off. And the fact that they go to Japan, they don't actually go to Japan. That was all in the same studio and so forth. But anyway, I just don't know. For me, this episode's one of the weakest. I actually kind of like sushi. I like Japanese culture. But I think there was just something off about this episode. I really, really, in my heart of hearts, think that a lot of the marital issues were really strongly pronounced. You do have a couple lovey-dovey scenes between Lucy and Ricky, and I think they're just off. They're just not what we usually see. Lucy and Ethel's geishas, it just doesn't work, guys and gals. I don't know how to say it, in my opinion. For me, the funniest scene was in the beginning when Lucy and Ethel are trying to get a peek at Bob Cummings bathing. In my opinion, that's my funniest scene. And it's funny because the walls, of course, of the hotel are paper, right? It's Japan and so forth. And so Lucy tries to make a little hole and her whole body goes through. It's pretty funny. But again, it's almost like everything builds up just to that, and it's a lot of time that they take building up to that. Then we also have the scene later on where Lucy is in the water and she kind of is kind of use the money, getting the money out of Fred's money belt. I don't really find it that amusing, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just felt like it was a little forced. It was a little the Lucy show later on. It was just Lucy. It wasn't, how can I explain it? It was very Lucy to Fred. And there was no Ricky involved. There was no Ricky going crazy. There was no dynamic of four. It was only Lucy, which isn't bad. But it was, again, so different. And I just don't think it worked as well as I wanted it to. It was also the last appearance of Catherine Card as Lucy's mother. And, of course, we do see little Ricky as well. Now we come to the last episode, guys and gals. Lucy Meets the Mustache. This is a April 1st, 1960 release. You see that many, many months goes by, 5 months, almost half a year. This is it. This is the last, what we can call I Love Lucy episode. It was a bit sad. Literally, the plot itself was a bit sad. What was happening behind the scenes in itself was really sad as well. It was, they already knew they were going to be separated. Everyone knew that there was big issues. Like, people knew it was bad. They didn't think it was going to go toward the divorce, but they knew the tensions were so high. It was just bad. They wouldn't speak to each other on set. I'm talking about Lucy and Desi. They would tell other people to talk. So Desi would say, hey, tell Mrs. Arnaz this. And then Lucy would say, well, tell Mr. Arnaz this. It was, they wouldn't speak to each other. And so they had to perform these scenes, which actually the last kissing scene seemed very genuine. I think they knew it was the last, and it was like they wanted to finish strong. So to me, that scene was a little awkward. Now, Lucy meets the mustache wife. She essentially dresses up as Ernie Kovacs, who is the guest star here, and Edie Addams. She dresses up as Ernie Kovacs' chauffeur. She puts on a mustache, and yeah, I don't know. There's this very awkward scene where Ernie Kovacs or Edie Addams, they get together with the Ricardos, the Mertzes, and guys and gals, it's almost as if there's something in the room. You can feel it. You can see it through the performances of everyone. They're performing their lines. They're saying everything as they should. You hear the script, but it's almost like you're not interested. You can feel like there's something wrong. Like, what just happened behind the scenes, right? You do feel it. A lot of people say it's the saddest episode, although it's not. There's funny stuff in there, but it's just awkward. It's almost like watching an awkward date on TV between people. That's the performance of the entire episode, in my opinion. There's very few moments. There's actually a scene where Ernie Kovacs does a little bit of magic and everyone's kind of reacting to it. And I think it's okay. It's focused on him, and I kind of like it. I kind of enjoy it. There's even scenes where Ernie Kovacs is like upset, and then Lucy's trying to talk to him. There's just a lot of anger and sadness. There's even a very sad song by Edie Addams that she sings through this, and essentially is very accidental, but the lyrics are very foreshadowing into the divorce. That was an accident. Like, that wasn't, oh, let's do this because no, it wasn't anything like that. It was just overall like a dark cloud was above it. But I really challenge people to watch it because it is the last, and to me it's my least favorite. Absolutely, I don't even like to watch it, guys and gals. Like, I do watch it, but when I do, it's like, ugh. And yeah, that's my list, guys and gals. Those are the episodes. Now, if you haven't seen these, I really think you should watch every single one. You really should. And see the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. There is some really strong content on here with these episodes. Make Room for Danny is amazing. There's also, in my opinion, the Summer Vacation, which I loved. Tallulah Bankhead episode is very, very great. Uranium as well. There's just good moments peppered throughout. It is longer. It is a different style. You kind of have to get used to it, but it's the last time we see all four of them together on screen. Lucy, Desi, Bill, and Viv. And it's a joy, in my opinion. I hope you like this. As I mentioned, it was going to go long, but I think that's okay. It's something different than what I usually do. And I love that it's kind of a conversation. So it did take me a while to make this video, but I do appreciate the support. I do enjoy making these videos. It was a bit out of the ordinary to do something at length, at this length, but let me know, be honest, let me know if once in a while maybe you'd like me to make more of these longer ones, or maybe I go really deep into episodes, what I like, don't like, highlight things. If you do like it, let me know, give a thumbs up, let me know in the comments. If you don't, you can let me know as well, but let me know if you like the shorter ones, behind the scenes stuff. I just like to try different things, and this was one that I really enjoyed making because I can just kind of speak from the heart. I can go through the episodes and we can kind of connect. It's just like I'm talking Lucy. So thank you so much, guys and gals. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for the support, and most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much to my Diamond tier patrons: Citizen Kane 359, Paul T, Ricky, Gary N, David D, Sally N, Yasmin G, and Lori K. If you want to be part of the Patreon family, don't forget to take a look at the description with many exclusives that you can enjoy.